Hey guys, it's me Jack and I'm back with another review. Today I will be reviewing the final movie in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, Spider-Man 3. Seeing how Spider-Man 2 was loved by pretty much everybody, there was a lot of anticipation for the next movie. That anticipation only got bigger when it was announced that Venom, easily the most popular Spider-Man villain, was going to be in the movie. In summer of 2007, they flocked into the theaters to see the latest Spider-Man movie. And when they came out, their reaction was, "Son of a bitch, they f***ed it up." Through the years, this movie has been scrutinized, critiqued, made fun of, and ridiculed by pretty much everybody. However, when I was a kid, I loved this movie. It was my favorite of the trilogy. I thought it was so cool. What do I think of it now? Let's find out. We rejoin Peter Parker, and his life is going pretty well. He's doing well at school, he's finally dating Mary Jane, and the city is finally seeing Spider-Man as the hero that he is. However, things start to change when a strange black substance that fell from a meteorite finds its way to him, and he starts to act, differently. Not only that, but Harry Osborn wants revenge on him for killing his father. And not only that, but a man named Flint Marko is stealing money from banks all over the city. He's also the real killer of Uncle Ben, so Peter goes after him. And not only that, but there's a new photographer at the Daily Bugle named Eddie Brock. And he and Peter start competing for a staff job. So as you can tell, there's a lot of stuff going on in this movie. And yeah, that's one of the movie's major problems. I honestly was considering whether I even needed to review this movie at all. I mean, so much has been said about it. But I said I was going to review all the Spider-Man movies, so here we are. One of the reasons why the first two movies worked so well was that they were simple. They had a good, well-balanced amount of characters, including one hero and one villain. But with this movie, you have three. Now, the interesting thing is that, if you think about it, a lot of movies have more than one villain. And there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes it works. But the reason that it does work is because all of the villains are connected. You have the main villain, the supporting villain, and the henchman. But in this movie, all three of the villains are so disconnected from one another. And they all get lots of screen time devoted to them. It also helps to have a main villain. And in this movie, it's really unclear who the main villain is. It's definitely not Harry, because he has amnesia for a good chunk of the movie, and he becomes a good guy in the end. It's not Venom, he's only really a bad guy at the very end. I guess you could say that it's Sandman, but even he's absent for a good chunk of the movie. So we can focus on that. Yeah, that happened. The original idea that the writer of this movie had was to split it into two movies, which definitely would have been the right decision. But no, we got one big jumbled mess of a movie. How's Peter Parker in this movie? Well, it's very sad for me to say, but Tobey Maguire's acting has gotten a lot worse. Don't get me wrong, there are still plenty of scenes where he holds up pretty well. But when he's bad, he's really, really bad. Particularly the scene between him and Mary Jane on the bridge. Rewatching the movie, when I got to that scene, I actually laughed. I laughed at what's supposed to be a dramatic moment. That is not good. Him getting the black suit and becoming more aggressive and more angry was a great concept, and could have been really interesting, but they screw it up big time by playing most of it for comedy. They could have told a really great dark psychological thriller about a man's fight against his inner demons. But instead, we have him dancing around the street like an idiot. He was great at playing the nerdy Peter Parker, and he was decent at playing Spider-Man, but this is really bad. I really feel sorry for Tobey Maguire. I think he's a very talented actor, and this movie really ruined his reputation. What about Mary Jane? Well, she's still not a very good character. Right at the beginning of the movie, she complains about her performance in a play getting a bad review. Peter, being a nice, supportive guy, tells her that she has to get used to some criticism. He tells her that Spider-Man gets criticized all the time, and he understands how she feels, but she just shuts him out. Then later, she loses her part in the play, and she decides not to tell him for some reason. Again, why does she do this? A lot of people say that Peter is a jerk for kissing Gwen Stacy as Spider-Man in front of Mary Jane. I do understand this complaint. He shouldn't be kissing other women in front of his girl. but honestly, I think he is a little justified in this. Hear me out, just hear me out. Now that Spider-Man has become pretty much a celebrity, Peter wants to give the people what they want, and what the people wanted was for him to kiss Gwen. So that's what he did. But he makes it very clear to Mary Jane that, as Peter Parker, he doesn't see her as anything other than just a friend. Mary Jane asks him, when you kissed her, who was really kissing her? Spider-Man or Peter? Well, to that I say, it was clearly just Spider-Man. Her character isn't much better throughout the rest of the movie. And at the end, when she was kidnapped, again, I really didn't care. Now let's talk about those three villains, starting with Harry. I think that most people can agree that Harry should have been the main villain of this movie. I mean, the last two movies did such a good job of building conflict between him and Peter, and at the end of the second movie, he was perfectly set up to be a worthy opponent. Strangely enough, the movie starts off rather promising, with a very entertaining and intense action scene between him and Peter. But then, of course, he gets amnesia, and then he's just sort of there. He hangs out with Peter, he and MJ make omelets and dance, and then he gets his amnesia back. He and Peter have another fight, Peter throws a bomb in his face, and then he's out of the movie again. Then his butler tells him, guess what? Spider-Man didn't really kill your father killed himself. And as everybody has said, why the f*** didn't he tell him that before? And now suddenly he's a good guy, helping Peter fight the other two villains. However, I will say that while his character wasn't handled well throughout most of the movie, his death I think was very well handled. Like his father, he gets stabbed by his own glider, and unlike his father, he does it doing something heroic. And his death scene where he and Peter reconcile and become friends again is very emotionally moving. But that doesn't make up for the fact that they handled his character so poorly in this movie. Then we have Flint Marko, or the Sandman. I can honestly say that of the three villains in this movie, he's the one that feels the most out of place. His subplot about getting money to try to cure his sick daughter feels so detached from everything else in this movie. Now, I really must give all the credit in the world to Thomas Hayden Church, who I think did an excellent job playing this character, and made him as sympathetic as possible. I do like that he isn't really evil, he's just doing the wrong thing for the right reason. When Spider-Man tries to stop him from robbing the armored car, he says to Spider-Man, "Leave, I don't want to hurt you." That is a nice sign of humanity. However, at the end of the movie, his character does a big 180. When Venom asks him if he wants to help him kill Spider-Man, he says yes. But why? Because Spider-Man tried to stop him? Well, isn't helping your daughter more important? Shouldn't that be your main priority? Well, no, I guess not. He just becomes another evil villain for Spider-Man to fight. Then, after the battle, he and Spider-Man talk. I kind of made a mistake in my last review when I said that Spider-Man 2 was the only film in the trilogy where Spider-Man talked to the villain instead of just fighting him. While that is the case with Venom, it's not the case with the Sandman. Peter forgives Marko for killing his uncle, and then he just lets him go. What? What are you doing, man? Okay, so he apologized for killing your uncle, which was an accident apparently, so why is he even apologizing? But that's no reason to just let him escape. He's just gonna go rob some more banks. And we never see him again. And then we come to Venom, or Eddie Brock, played by Topher Grace. Now, Venom is arguably the most popular Spider-Man villain of all time. So when it was announced that he was going to be in this movie, people were stoked. But pretty much everybody can agree that the way that he's portrayed in this movie is nothing short of sacrilege. He starts off as a photographer who serves as a rival to Peter, as he too wants a staff job at the Daily Bugle. Jameson tells them that he'll give a staff job to whoever can expose Spider-Man as the criminal that he truly is. This leads to Eddie Brock faking a picture of Spider-Man robbing a bank. At first things go well and he ends up getting the job, but then Peter comes in and exposes him as a liar and has him fired. Now, to be honest, on his own, I think that Topher Grace does a decent job playing Eddie Brock. He does have some funny lines. Most of the problems come in the last half of the movie. Peter ends up getting him fired, and it comes off like we're supposed to feel sorry for him. But why would we? he did something that wasn't right. Not only that, but before he even gets the black suit, he wants Peter Parker dead. He goes to the church and asks God to kill Peter. I'm sorry, what? Okay, so he got you fired from your job, and he took your girlfriend, who wasn't even really your girlfriend, and you want him dead? It would make sense if he was just angry at Peter at first, and then when he gets the black suit, he wants to kill him, seeing how the black suit intensifies your emotions. But no, he says this before he gets it, and then he becomes Venom. Actually, that's not right. This isn't Venom. This is Topher Grace dressed up as Venom, because that's all we see for most of it. He constantly peels back the Venom face to reveal his own face. Why? Why on earth did they think that this is what we wanted to see? There is nothing threatening at all about this guy. And then the biggest insult. He dies. That's right, Venom is thrown in at the last minute, gets 10 minutes of screen time, and then dies. I get that you guys want to give the fans what they want, but if you're just gonna squeeze this character in at the very end, and then just kill him off, is it even worth it? Venom is a character that deserves a whole movie to himself, and that's what he eventually got. And while that movie isn't anything good, it's still much better than this. The rest of the characters aren't much to talk about. Aunt May is still a good character, even if she doesn't get as much screen time as she did in the last two films. Gwen Stacy is also thrown into this movie. Her character is basically nothing but a plot device. Just somebody for Eddie Brock to be in love with, only to have Peter take her away from him and make him bitter and angry at Peter. One thing about this movie that does work is the action. The action in the last two movies was good, but in my opinion, this film has the best action in the entire trilogy. Hell, the best action in any of the Spider-Man movies. From the chase scene at the beginning with Peter and Harry, to the armored car fight with Sandman, to the subway tunnel fight, and the climax at the construction site. These are well done, well choreographed, and entertaining action scenes. I also must hand it to Sam Raimi. While this movie is incredibly stupid in many areas, when a legitimately dark and creepy scene works, it really works. Sam Raimi knows how to deliver some great horror. The scene where the black goo makes its way to Peter is really quite scary, as we see the shadow of the goo turn into what looks like a reaching hand, intercut with Peter having a nightmare about Uncle Ben's death. But sadly, this makes me very annoyed as well, because it makes me think just how much better this movie could have been if they had just embraced the darker tone fully. How are the special effects? Well, some of them, particularly the ones on the Sandman, look pretty cool, but others look horrendous. At least the first two movies, for the most part, didn't show many CGI human faces. But here we have several human CGI faces, and they look awful. They look like they belong in a Robert Zemeckis motion capture film. But if I'm being honest, my least favorite part of this movie isn't the multiple villains, it isn't the fact that they ruined and wasted Venom, and it's not the emo Peter dancing scenes. It's the fact that they made Flint Marko the real killer of Uncle Ben. Now, go back to the first movie. One of the most pivotal moments in the entire film, hell, arguably the most pivotal moment in the entire film, was when Peter let the burglar escape, and that burglar ended up killing Uncle Ben. This is how Peter became Spider-Man. Not because he was bitten by a radioactive spider, but because he was semi-responsible for his uncle's death. And in Spider-Man 2, Peter finally opened up and told Aunt May that he was responsible for his uncle's death. In my favorite scene in the entire movie. Then this movie comes along and says, hey, guess what? It wasn't that guy after all, it was this guy. Even when I was a kid and I liked this movie, I did not like this. I mean, what is the point of putting us through all of this drama with Peter if you're just gonna pull out the rug from under us and tell us that it wasn't his fault after all? Furthermore, why didn't the other guy just tell Peter that it wasn't him? When Peter says, did you give my uncle a chance? Did you? Why didn't the guy just say, dude, it wasn't me, it was my friend Flint, and it was also an accident? Even if he doesn't believe you, it's worth a try. Why didn't he say it? Well, because at the time, that guy was the real killer of Uncle Ben. They just pulled this out of their ass when this movie came around. Now, the reason that they did this was so Peter would have a reason to want revenge on Flint Marko, tying into this movie's themes about revenge and forgiveness. But if that was the case, why didn't they have him kill Aunt May instead? That would be a good way of making Peter want to kill this guy while still leaving Spider-Man's origin alone. But no, the very reason that Peter became Spider-Man in the first place was all a lie. Thank you, Spider-Man 3. Thank you. So yeah, this movie sucks. That's not really much of a surprise. Even Sam Raimi himself has openly admitted that he doesn't like this movie. Raimi was planning on making a Spider-Man 4 to make up for the disappointment of this movie, but he just didn't trust the studio. And you know what? After this, I wouldn't either. I'm gonna give Spider-Man 3 a 5 out of 10. So thanks for watching my review, and be sure to let me know what you think of Spider-Man 3 in the comment section down below. And join me next time for my review of the reboot, The Amazing Spider-Man. Till then, I'm Jack, and I will see you next time.